All right, Saints. I have an illustration for you, as I often do in my videos and live streams. You're riding around in the state of California in the United States, and you pass by a neighborhood, and you see that the neighborhood is not one of the best neighborhoods. But wherever you go, you see houses with families having a good time. Many of them are on welfare, some of them are working, but then you encounter this one house, and that property, you're horrified when you look at it. You see that it has laundry machines. That means the the washer as well as the dryer outside. There is this sink for the sewer in the backyard, which by law is forbidden. You see that the house is almost collapsing, and you see that the grass looks contaminated as if some nuclear waste has lingered around. And you see that there are trash bags dumped all over the place. When you see that property, you almost have to vomit and you get horrified. It gets worse. Because when you go to a shop to get some groceries, because you guys are on a road trip, you're going to travel to another state in California afterwards, you encounter a little boy, and this little boy is buying some candy. And you guys talk to the little kid, just because because the little kid is quite funny also. And then one of you asks the kid where the kid lives. And the child tells you that he lives in that place. But then all of you are shocked. They ask the child, little boy, is that the house where you have this big ditch, this big hole in the backyard? And the boy says, yeah, our landlord did it, and my dad was okay with it. So then one of you asked, okay, what's your dad doing? He's helping people out on the computer. So then you guys let the little boy go. And what happens? One of you is so annoyed, or better said, so pissed off that he decides to call the authorities, the child protecting services. After he did that, you guys ask him, why did you do that? And he explains himself. Guys, have you not seen how horrible that house was? Not even a vagabond or any homeless individual who want to live in such a mess, in such a ruin. Okay? And now you have children, because that little boy said he has siblings. You have children and their parents living there. It's not the children's fault they're living in such a horrible condition. The parents are accountable. Look, even the people on welfare don't live like that. And what type of man would stay behind his computer almost all day long while his family is living on what appears to be a dump site? And there's even a sewer pit in his backyard. What? And the rest of you agrees. Indeed, no child should have to grow up in such circumstances. So, some people say, well, it's none of your business. And well, it is your business, because there are children endangered by those unhealthy circumstances. Now, in this case, you have parents. Let's focus on the father, who is neglectful towards his household and towards himself, because not even him as an adult should even tolerate himself to live over there. Look, if someone is working from 9 to 5, if someone is conducting slave labor, if someone is allowing himself to be exploited by his employers, but he's doing that to feed his family, even the employers that are exploiting him will feel honor for him. And even they will become very comfortable exploiting such a man because they see he allows himself to be exploited, but he does it to feed his family. And then his good character as a father will reflect on the evil that people are doing to him, and people eventually become so uncomfortable and they will stop. Okay? Even if someone was involved in criminal activity, but he only did it because he saw no other option than to provide for his family, even then, courthouses would have sympathy for that man. They won't condone his criminal activity, but at least they will have sympathy for him. The jury would have sympathy for him. Even in prison, hardcore criminals would recommend this man because he put himself in danger and harm's way just to make sure his family is safe and fed. But what if you have a man who claims that he's a family man, but he neglects his family and including himself openly? So he contradicts himself openly, but at the same time, he wants all the benefits of being this great husband and father. Nobody in their right mind would give such a man a pass. And his wife, the mother of the children, would also not be exempt from scorn. Because people think if your husband is a deadbeat creep, you should do the right thing, divorce that man or leave that man for the sake of your children. Even if you are a bum and you don't have much care for yourself, at least consider your children. Now, why am I giving you this example? It is because when you look at the world, when you look how the world operates as that example I just gave onto you, as that deadbeat father who wants all the credit but doesn't want to actually be what he wants honor for. If you want honor for something or you want appreciation for something, you have to be the thing you want appreciation for. Now the world wants appreciation at all costs, but without having the obligations to be what they want appreciation for. That is how society works. I mean, think about it. Why does homelessness still exist? Some people say, but Rashid, homeless exists because there's not enough houses. Okay, why don't they build more houses then? Why don't they build more flat complexes? Yeah, but where's the money? Isn't the money printed by the government? So why don't they just print more money, cause some inflation, and later they can rectify the inflation? That's what governments did throughout history. If there is an economic crisis, or there may be a shortage in the economy, they would just print more money, cause an inflation, and then when the situation is rectified, they will destroy some of the money they've printed and stabilize it again. So the whole excuse, there is no money, is no excuse. It's not a valid reason. And here's the thing, most of the Earth's surface is not even inhabited by human beings. It's mainly the low-filled plains where cities are built. And much of the human population is living in cities. So there are big land masses out there who are empty and where people can habitate if it's invested in them. So homelessness is something that should not even exist because there is no such thing as lack on the earth. There's only lack of faith and mismanagement of Earth's resources. So that means that the masses are in on it. Because if the masses would put enough pressure on their leaders or on each other, the whole issue of homelessness would disappear by tomorrow. What about all those flat complexes? What about all those malls and all those buildings were becoming abundant? There are many abandoned buildings, sometimes even abandoned towns out there. Why don't they not reform those abandoned towns or abandoned properties into habitable places for homeless people? And they tell the homeless folks, you can live here. We're not going to charge you rent, but at least do some community service to do something back. You can make such arrangements with people. Look, what type of community allows some of its members to fall in such difficulty that they barely can get out of? And which community that's honorable would turn their backs on their own members who need help. Because most of the homeless folks out there, when it comes down to it, if they want solutions and they want to get out, often it's the same community that they are homeless in that's opposing them. Yeah, there are exceptions of homeless people who became homeless because of their narcissistic ways, because they were addicted and all of that, but even then, they are fellow human beings. There were people who became homeless because they lost their job or the business went bankrupt, or though because they were arrested and jailed for something they didn't do, and after they were released from jail, there was somebody that was willing to help them. A lot of people became homeless, and it was not their fault. And when they became homeless, the community dropped them. Nobody wants to look at them. What type of community like that is going to demand honor from children? What type of honor are they looking for? Yet, children are told they need to be respectful and honorable towards society, especially people that are older. But it's the people that are older than them, the adults, that keep homelessness alive. And homelessness is used as a threat towards children, that if they don't go to school, if they don't kiss ass enough of the employers and of the rest of society, they may end up just like those homeless people. So they're using a threat of violence, that they're using the threat of physical and mental harm on children to cause children to comply. What is honorable about that? There is nothing honorable about that. So society, in order to portray itself as an honorable entity, it has to play the victim. So if there's a lot of homelessness in a community, everyone's going to see that the community is just a bunch of narcissists clogging together. And once people see through this, nobody wants to comply anymore. And then the community will disintegrate. And with this integration comes a lot of daily discomfort, and daily discomfort may lead to eruptive violence. So to prevent this from happening, they now create an artificial enemy that's attacking that quote-unquote society. Whether it's a terrorist somewhere in Afghanistan, or whether it's some drug lord in Mexico, or whether it's some white supremacist cult, society will fabricate, if necessary, an enemy, and they will trick the population into believing that this enemy really exists and is there to get them. And when people feel threatened by an external enemy, now they will join forces together, even people they can't stand, just to prevent harm on them collectively. And by doing this, everyone will forget how dishonorable they've been towards one another. Everyone will forget about the homelessness that they tolerate. Everyone will forget about the domestic violence they tolerate. Everyone will forget about the child abuse that they tolerate. Everyone will forget about the exploitation upon each other that they enact every day. So, for society to avoid being exposed, it needs enemies to attack. But it's only because those enemies are quote unquote in existence that people don't see society for what it really is. There are some children who see what society really is and they become demotivated, rightfully so. But eventually they'll find ways to deal with this thing called society without actually being part of it. Then there are people who see what society is, but they're resentful that they've seen it and they can't unsee it. So now they look for victims so that they don't have to face themselves. And then you have folks who feel and sense that something is off, but they don't want to know what's off, because once they know what's off, that means they need to process and deal with what's off. And then you also have people who know the full game and they decide, you know what, I want to serve the Heavenly Father. I don't want to be part of this at all. And then you have folks who join the dark side willfully to exploit the neglect of the masses. However you look at it, when society loses enemies, society fades to exist or ceases to exist. Society needs enemies to fight. Society needs enemies to feel victimized by. Because as long as society can portray itself as the victim, it's guaranteed to get supporters. It's guaranteed to groom fanatic supporters that will excuse anything the society is doing. And some of you had parents like that. Anything society does is right. Even when society was neglectful and there was no scientific way to justify the neglect that happened, your parents would always come up with some dumb excuse. For example, they would say the reason why those people in the ghetto have it that bad is because they're lazy, they don't want to work. When you point out to your parents that when they apply for jobs, they are refused because of their background, so people want improvement, but they resist it, then say, well, maybe just, your parents say, then maybe you just have to comply more. If they comply more, it would be better. The same way you have people condoning child abuse. They condone domestic violence. They condone a lot of stuff. Why? Because their idol, society, is all they live for. It's very simple. Society needs victims to victimize so that everyone can get along. But to hide the fact that society is a collective victimizer, they need to fabricate enemies that are so-called attacking them. And as long as society succeeds in tricking you into believing that those artificial enemies are real, that's all they need. Because the moment you believe those artificial enemies are real, you now will take the side of society who you then perceive as a victim. And now, without being aware of it, you will side with the victim, which in your mind is society, not realize that it's actually the victimizer. And because you're so invested in being a good guy or a good woman or a good girl by taking a stance or by taking a stance against evil or taking a stance for society by fighting the bad guys, because you're so invested in this and your human relationships are also based on this identification with society as a victim, because of that, when the truth comes out or when the truth becomes undeniable, you go into denial also. You tend to flee. Why? Because that means that all your investments were based on a hoax. That's why people that are older than 25 often don't want to hear anything about conspiracies nor about the ills of society. You know why? Because in their minds, they go to work every day, they work from 9 to 5, they pay taxes, they only talk when people want them to talk, they submit to all those toxic restrictions, and because of that, they're part of the good guys. They're part of the good crowd. They are the decent people. And everyone in their lives, parents, maybe even their own children if they have them already, or their peers, and all the great memories they've made in their life are based on them identifying as the good guys. And the good guys are the ones bending over to society's expectations. Why? Society is the victim. You don't attack the victim because you're better than that. So, when people have invested in this basis and later in life, when things backfire and things become clear that they've been scammed, they tend to lose it. That is why conspiracy theorists often are endangered, because a lot of people who want to figure out what goes on, they make the mistake by thinking that people want to be free, that people want solutions. People don't. People don't want to admit they've been scammed. So if you show evidence they've been scammed, they're going to turn on you. Some folks don't want solutions. So remember the example I gave in the beginning of this video, or better said, this audio clip. If you would see a place that's falling apart, there is a sewer pit in the backyard, so it's very unhealthy and even dangerous for your physical health to live there, and you figure out there's a father with his wife and children living there, you'd be very angry at the father, or actually you'd be angry at both parents, thinking, what are you thinking, allowing your children to live in such circumstances? What are you thinking that even you yourself is living in such circumstances. What's going on? Yet, when it comes to society that puts many of its own members under the threat of physical violence, or when it comes to society that tricks people into ways that are not good for them, when it comes to society that violates its own members, for some reason, we can't see it for what it is. That needs to stop. Well, that's all I have for this audio clip. Keep it on green with Christ.